When you can go inside and you can connect with your source and become you at your true essence, now things happen for you.
Today we are joined by Joe Kavanagh, a 40-year real estate veteran who built a massive firm only to realize material success was only half the story.
We're exploring how he survived total market collapse to rediscover his authentic self and help other men do the same.
You need to be who you are at your true essence. So I just need to be that innocent, pure boy who didn't see anything wrong with the world. Think about who you really are as a person and think of yourself as a young child still living at home. It's a mind shift more than anything. When your mind shifts, you'll be amazed the effect it has on people around you. And the next thing you know, things will start coming to you that you had no clue that you always hoped for, but didn't know that they could.
Yeah, if you can break that, then it's a totally different world. It's a whole paradigm shift.
I had women coming up to me and saying, thank you for sharing that message. You need to get that out there to the world. Men need to hear this. And we would love our men more if they... That was an enlightening moment to me. I didn't even realize that myself.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Men's Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Marc, and I'm here with Joe Kavanagh. He is an entrepreneur that has been in the business, mainly real estate, for over 40 years, buying and selling companies. And he's now a speaker and a coach, helping people bring more emotional intelligence, resiliency, and depth to their work and their professional and personal lives. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marc. I really appreciate being on air. It's an honor, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. So, yeah, I would like to start with the personal story. So, what got you into this work? I know you have a whole career behind you, a whole lifetime behind you, but yeah, how did you transition from, the business to the personal?
The shorter story on that is roughly 10, 12 years ago, I basically had a change of life situation. And at that point, I realized that even though I became successful again, I wasn't happy. So I suppose we could back up and start kind of from the beginning, if you may. If we
Sure.
make.
Yeah, I'd love to hear how you grew up and what life was like for you.
Okay, beautiful. I grew up in the Boston area. I was born in Dublin, Ireland, but grew up in the Boston area. And I just had a natural ability for sales. Even from high school on, friends used to tell me that you could sell anything to anybody. And so as life would have it, I tried different things, tried going to college, hated it. Ended up driving tractor trailer, the big rigs for a while, and that was fun, but that's for the single guy, and I wanted to do something better with my life. And so I just evolved into sales. I ended up quitting my job there and buying a campground up in the state of Maine. And I negotiated, we had that for a few years, and I negotiated the sale to the town for a public beach. And the broker that had sold me the campground, she came to me and said, look, you're a good salesman. You need to come work for me. So that got me into real estate. And I got very good very fast. And I knew I was good. And up in Massachusetts, I was the epitome of that arrogant, I'm better than you type of guy. And in the Boston area, as you know, they have a term for that type of person. You're known as a masshole. So I was that guy. I was exactly that guy. And I grew up in a big Irish Catholic family. I was 6 of 7 children. And every one of my siblings ended up having to get married, hence didn't save up for a house, ended up renting for the most part, and living paycheck to paycheck. And I didn't want to do that. There was something in me that was driving me. I said, you got to do something better. And I aimed to break that chain, so to speak. So I pursued money more than anything. And sales was a great way to do it. Big commissions on big deals that you would do. So that worked for me. And everything was going great. I moved to South Carolina back in the 90s and started a real estate business here. As it turned out, I also am a certified real estate appraiser. So I thought, well, either the appraisal business is going to take off or my sales business. As it turned out, the appraisal side took off much faster. So I went with that. And within 2 or 3 years, I grew that firm to be the second largest firm in Charleston. So I was very proud of that. Eventually, it got so good, I finally got that house in the country club, on the golf course, with the pool. Everything was great. Life was golden. I made it. So, yes, I did it. And I had my ego to thank for that. And then the crash of 2008 came, the real estate crash. At the time the crash arrived, I owned and managed 19 properties. And on the other end of that crash, when I finally came through it, I lost 9 of them to foreclosure and whatnot, and still had 10 left, but felt like a failure. And not only did my appraisal work dry up, but my rental income dried up because people lost their jobs in that crash. And they didn't have money to pay the rent. And the problem was there was no tenants coming to replace them because nobody had work. A lot of people didn't. So that really stung me a lot. And I basically ended up losing my home in the country club. And eventually it finally led to the end of my 37-year marriage. That was a personal blow. So I was on the recovery end of it, and it was about 2015. Ended up splitting up with my wife and didn't know what I was going to do. Still hungry, try to get back and make money and be successful again. I met this woman who I ended up, she became my second wife and still is, Cindy. And early on, she said something to me that really changed my life. She says, you know, you're struggling to be successful, but you're never going to be successful the way you're going about it. I said, what do you mean? She goes, if you really want to be successful, you need to be who you are at your true essence, not who you think other people want you to be. Ouch. Ouch. Oh my God, I'm like, ooh, where did this come from? I never even thought about that previously. It was all about chasing the money. And so that led me on a long road of discovery. And she highly recommended I go to this group meditation with a friend of hers that she knew about that was putting it on. And as a result of that meditation, it finally led me to realize who I was as a person. And I had to go back to me as a 6-year-old to figure that out. So you talk about some deep introspective work. That was a life changer, a game changer. Ever since then, I finally realized I just got to be me, and I will attract the right people. So after that, with all the training I did, all the coaching I received, everything just started to fall into my lap. And not only did I become more successful, but it came to me a lot easier. I didn't have to struggle for it and fight for it. And that was the big change in my life. So at this point in my life, I really don't even have to work. I've got residual income. I have rental income. I have investments, et cetera, et cetera. And I continue to do it, though, because I love to help people. That's my real passion. And my goal became at that point, my why, my purpose is like, there's a reason I'm still here on this earth. I've got a lot of wisdom. I've got a lot of experience. How can I put that to use? And then it finally came to me, I could coach and mentor and train others. Those that are maybe just struggling, can't seem to find the right combination, or have been successful, but have reached a bit of a plateau and they're a little frustrated as why they can't get better. And that's what I do now is I help to guide them to get to that next step. And through coaching, which, by the way, I do run a coaching program, a successful coaching company, and just happen to have a couple of openings at the moment if anybody wants to talk about that. But that has been a real passion of mine, and I've been very, very good at it from what my clients tell me. And another interesting fact about that, too, a little side note, is I told you I was 6 of 7 children. Well, I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. I've always been around girls. In high school, my best friends were girls, and ones I could confide in, they would confide in me, more so than the guys. And I always kept that to myself because I thought it wasn't very manly or very macho, you know. And now I realize that's a real power because I'm already in touch with my feminine energy. And as you know, we all have that feminine and masculine side. And one of the key things that I work with now with clients is not really a specialty, but men who want to find their true selves like I did, because we were taught, at least my generation, the majority of us, and maybe still today, that you've got to be the stoic person. You can't show weakness. You can't cry in public. You can't break down and I just can't handle this anymore. I need help. We were taught not to do that. We got to be the protector, the leader, the strong person. And yet that, I have found out through a lot of studying, has led to depression in men, and which consequently has led to a record rate of suicide. So my goal is to prevent as much of that as I can. And I actually have stories where I don't want to say I did it, but I was instrumental in saving a life. And that's one of my proudest moments that I have. And the other thing about that I was really surprised at, because I gave a talk about it in Vegas just about a year ago, that after my talk, I had women coming up to me and saying, "Thank you for sharing that message. You need to get that out there to the world. Men need to hear this. And we would love our men more if they would show more of their feminine side." That was an enlightening moment to me. I didn't even realize that myself.
Yeah, that's what they want of us, right? I mean, they want all of us. They want all of our emotions. They want our insecurities. They want our weakness. All stuff that as men we're like, ugh, gross. Like, I don't want to share that with anybody. The women, they eat that stuff up. They can't get enough of it.
You'll see women at the gym. I go to the gym frequently. And, well, I did up till COVID, and it's been a little different since. But you go to the gym, and you might see 2 or 3 girls over in a corner, and they're talking over a problem, and one of them might even be upset and crying and, showing it. And we just think that's perfectly normal for girls. Now, if you saw 3 guys over there, and one of them was crying and they're trying to console them, in at least my generation, they'd be like, what is wrong with that guy, And there's really nothing wrong with them. They're just sharing their problems because it's a little overwhelming. And we need more of that. We need to let our hair down, so to speak.
Well, so there's a lot of great things that I could pull from your story. Let's just start with what you just said most recently, kind of that generational piece. You're in the boomer generation, and I think y'all are much more stoic, and kind of have that very classical version of masculinity. But do you feel like there's people like yourself that are, aging, that are in that area where they're realizing that they missed out, that they're missing out on things, or that they feel confined by it? Or do you feel like your generation, by and large, is still kind of asleep to it?
To use your terminology, I would tend to think they're more asleep to it. Most of the guys that are around my age that I know, yeah, they're more, they still have to be the man, the macho guy, that sort of thing, the leader, the tough guy, and don't show weakness. So, yeah, I would say maybe they're asleep to it, because I know myself, and I've worked with people as clients, and I also co-coach. We sometimes do it as a group, and there are men in that group. Those men have realized that they've been holding back, and they're much happier now that they can express themselves freely. And what's beautiful is when you, for example, if I'm expressing myself freely and with some troubles I have, and those men just accept it as a fact and they're going to help me with it, that's a great feeling in itself, knowing that it's okay to share that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like you have a brotherhood. You have like a real emotional brotherhood of people that have your back and want the best for you. I think so many men, your generation, my generation, I think even modern, Gen Z, is like, we're so lonely. We're so disconnected and cut off, I think, from other men in particular, that we don't experience emotional intimacy with anybody except for our partners, typically.
Yes. And I will say this too, what I have found, myself and from people I've worked with, they are so happy that they can now be this way, where they can be more emotional instead of being so stoic. And yeah, you touched on it, even with the younger generation, they're so lonely and isolated, because who are their friends? They're the 3,000 people they know on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, right? How many true friends do you have? And one of the observations I've realized is Women tend to have a circle of friends that they can call on and get together, have their girl time, for example. I don't know many men that have a circle of friends. I don't. I mean, I had a best friend growing up, but we kind of just drifted apart over the years as adults because we went different directions. And I play tennis once a week with some guys. We've been playing together for decades, yet I don't hang out with them otherwise. You know, we don't go to parties together. We don't get together and go to ball games or any of that kind of thing, or go fishing or whatever it might be. And it's not everybody, but I still think it's the bulk of us.
Yeah, I think that's pretty typical. You know, I think in a traditional household too, it's often, you know, the wife that is a social manager. So if people like yourself or that have gone through divorce, right, like you get divorced and all of a sudden you've lost all your friends, you've lost all your social connection. You know, I work with a lot of divorced men and specifically divorced dads, and that's a really common story, is they lose everything. They don't just lose their marriage, they lose their job, they lose their friends. Sometimes they lose their health and fitness. Sometimes they start drinking too much. You know, it can be this whole spiral downwards. I'm curious, was that part of your story? Was it kind of a, you know, house of cards, you know, domino effect?
With me, I'm a social butterfly. I love being around people. I realize that's from a not feeling loved. I want to be accepted. I wanted to be loved. And I just thought that was my problem. Yet I've discovered now that we all have that same desire. It's one of those things that I just didn't realize prior. And so I kept it to myself. And that's when I started to be that person that I thought everybody else wanted me to be. And I wasn't as liked or loved as I wanted to be honest about it. And now I can see that that's the real reason why. Because now that I've changed and I just am me, instead of trying to be someone else, I've got much better quality of friends around me. And people love me for who I am. So that's the biggest benefit from it.
Yeah, can you share more about being authentic? You know, because I think it's easy to hear like, hey, just be yourself, right? Like, but many guys that listen to this show, and I've gotten feedback, it's like, what does that mean? You know, and what does that look like? Because I think for a lot of guys, we don't know who we are. There's a sense of rediscovery that has to happen.
I think the easiest way to explain that or show you and show the audience would be, I know we can't do like a meditation online, but I want to describe the meditation I went through just briefly and how it made me come to this realization. As I mentioned earlier, my current wife encouraged me to go to this group meditation, and I'd never been to one before, so I didn't know what to expect. And there was a circle of about 12 of us in the room. Typical in a yoga studio, you got the incense going and all that. And in the middle of the meat of that meditation, again, she's guiding us, and she says, picture yourself sitting at the edge of a beautiful meadow where all these wildflowers just growing and gentle breeze blowing and there's swaying in the breeze. An idyllic scene, you know, you got blue skies and puffy white clouds here and there, smelling the flowers and the fresh air. And then you see a huge shade tree across the other side of the meadow, and you're drawn over to that tree. And when you get to it, underneath it, in its shadow, there's a hole in the ground. And there's a stairway sticking up out of it or coming up out of it. And you're instructed to look down that hole and recognize that you fear the darkness because you don't know what's down there. So at this point, she said, to alleviate your fears, think of a person or an entity in this world, past, present, even future, who you know you can trust more than anybody in the world, and that they love you and they have your back. And they are going to hold your hand and keep you safe, and you're going to go down the stairs. So we do, and to speed it up a little bit, we come back up and we thank that person for keeping us safe, and then they leave the same way they showed up. Then you come back across the meadow, you finally come out of it, and they take you out of the meditation. So afterwards, she's going around the room, and she says, anybody care to share who that person was? And as it turned out, I was the last one coming around. And people were saying things like, you know, their spouse or their best friend or their mother or father or grandfather, or one person said Jesus Christ. I think another one said Gandhi. And it came to me, and I'm like, oh boy, I think I screwed this up. And I say, well, what do you mean? You couldn't have screwed it up. I say, I didn't have anybody like that. And I was like, well, who did you have? And I said, I had me as a 6-year-old. And everybody in the room just gasped. And I mean, tears started coming out of their eyes. And I thought I did something wrong. And I just thought, oh my God, that's so profound. Explain it to us. And what came out of me was that change is like, up until 6 years old, when I was young, you were still at home. We didn't go to school till you were 5 or 6. And you're in that home environment. You're surrounded by love and nurturing and care, usually at home with your mother, which in my generation we were. And then at 6 years old, all of a sudden you go to school. And what happens in school? They have laws of conformity. In order to be accepted, you need to behave this way. You can't act that way. There's rules to follow, things like that. And I was trying to be my honest self, and I was getting picked on. So it eventually caused me to sort of hide myself, go into a bit of a shell. That's when I started being the person I thought others liked and wanted me to be. So I hid my true self all those years, and it was serving me no purpose. And then when I met Cindy, and she explained to me that you need to be who you are at your true essence, I thought about that. I said, whoa. So I just need to be that innocent, pure boy who didn't see anything wrong with the world. I used to think, why do people fight? All you got to do is love each other and understand each other. Why they have wars? Why do you kill each other? It doesn't get us anywhere. If we could just understand each other and realize we have different points of view and accept that, we'd all get along. And then the world changes and you get all that external influence. So I guess my message to be your true essence. Think about who you really are as a person, not who others think you are. And if you need to, go back and think of yourself as a young child still living at home. And if you want more guidance on that, we have programs and calls that we can get on that can help you do that.
Yeah. Did you have to change anything fundamental about your life? You know, when I've helped guys through this process, there's often this part of like, you know, cleaning up the mess, which might mean, you know, leaving a relationship, leaving a job, changing, you know, a big habit, like just kind of going back and being like, whoa, I need to take off all these different masks and layers of masks off it.
No, actually, in my case, I did not have to. Keep in mind, I had just gone through my marriage and that we had split up. So I didn't have that to handle. I will say this, I had no intention of getting remarried. And yet I met this woman that it was just a match made. The universe put us together. We know that, and for a good purpose too. And it's helped me become me. And now I can get that message out to others and help them find themselves. You're much happier. I've realized I used to want all these material things. Like I said, I had that home in the country club, and of course it came with the big mortgage and everything. Yeah, but I thought, okay, I just work harder. And I was borderline workaholic. But I'll tell you what that did. That hurt my family life, my marriage. 2 of my 3 children don't talk to me today over various things, which that all contributed to it. I was always working and never there for them. I didn't have that relationship that I should have had. So it hurts, yet I can't go back and change it. All I can do is be the best person I can be going forward. And if they come around, they'll see that, because my other child, who is supportive, and she just said, Dad, if you're happy, I'm happy. Plain and simple. And luckily, I have that connection. And she has many times told the others that he is not the same person he used to be. You need to give him another chance. The world feels lighter. You don't have the heavy burdens. The weight is gone. And I'm just a happy person these days. I get up every day. I make the choice to be happy. And people tell me that. I go into the real estate company I work with. I go into the office, and the owners and all the staff say they love it when I come in, because it automatically just lifts the mood. I just go in with a smile, say hi to everybody, and how you doing? Hope you're doing great. You know, very simple things.
I'm curious, if you're willing, can you share more about your children? We've had people on the show that have talked about, cutting off their parents or setting boundaries, but we rarely have the other side of the table. We don't have that experience as often.
My oldest one, it was when Cindy and I decided to get married, when we got engaged. I don't know, I can't speak for him, and he's never shared his reasoning with everybody. All I know is what I got from him early on was that he felt he was lied to. See, he lived out of town. He didn't know that his mom and I were having struggles. My daughter lived in town. Matter of fact, for a while she lived with us because she just got out of college and couldn't find a job. And she had told us, no, I saw this coming. You could see it happening. And he had no clue. So I don't know if he thought we had an idyllic life and all of a sudden I left or what it was. And it wasn't like I had an affair or anything, or she did. It's just the flame went out. We were roommates. We just lost it. And so we thought we'd break up and see what happens. It'd either reignite or we were happier. And we both realized we were happier apart. And once I met Cindy, and then we decided 2-3 years later to get married, he basically shut me off at that point. And I haven't heard from him since. It's been 7 years. I mean, I know what he's doing and where he is because I hear from others, but...
that he's safe.
Yeah, nothing direct. Yeah. And my other child, with him, we always had a tough time communicating. Just our personality styles clashed. And we were never on an open basis that way. He's a highly intellectual guy, and he tends to be introverted in that sense, doesn't share things. You ask him a question, it's typically a one-word answer. And I'm the kind of guy that could ramble on for 5-10 minutes, as you can tell, when somebody asks me a question. And yeah, it just didn't get along. And then there's other issues within the family dynamics that just recently, actually, he said, I was told by my therapist to eliminate the negative influences in my life, and I feel like you're one of them. So he said, I'm not saying it's permanent, but it is for now. And so all I said was, well, I love you unconditionally, and if that's your choice, I'll support you. That's all I can do.
Yeah. That's tough, man.
It is tough. It is tough.
Yeah.
Yet, I've also realized, working through my coaches, and that's one thing I will say is everybody should have at least one coach, business coach, personal coach, guidance, something, just so you can share your issues and help get through life with, mainly. But I've learned that there's nothing I can do. It's not on me, it's on them. And that's why I say, I just love them and support them. And at least I brought them up well. They got a good start in life. They all got college degrees. That was one of my hard goals, to make sure they did that, because nobody in my family ever did. And at least they got the basis, and what they do with their life is their choice.
Yeah, can you say, speaking to dads out there that might not be in touch with their children, any advice or any, guidance for them along the way? Because I think it can feel like a hole that's never filled. It's a loss. It's real grief.
It is. I get comfort in knowing that even without me, that they're doing okay. And, maybe they're doing better without me. Is that the way it traditionally has been and way you dream about it and want it to be when you set your goals in life? No. Yet, a lot of things happen in life that we don't expect, and we learn to live with it and cope with it. And that's what I've done. Like I said, it's not on me, it's on them. It's their decisions. So I felt that, or do feel that, the best thing I can do is just support them, whatever their decisions are. But yeah, it's tough, especially on Father's Day and things like that. So, I texted them to wish them a happy Father's Day, but no response.
Well, I do hope, for what's worth, I hope they do come around and at least they're willing to have a conversation and resolve some of the conflict. It sounds like there is tension there that probably needs to get spoken about and worked on.
Sure, for sure. No doubt about it.
Well, so I want to pivot to the professional realm, where you talk about being less stoic, right? Being more emotional, being more in tune with your emotions. Can you talk about that, of how that might benefit, men professionally? Because that's what I hear is the number one reason is I can't do this at work. There's I can't open up. I can't, be more of me there.
Yeah. One of the key things I talk about is business problems are personal problems. Personal problems are business problems, especially when you're a business owner. You can't avoid one or the other. So you have to learn how to let them coexist. I honestly find that by being open and sharing and having a coach, having a friend, whoever it is that you can talk to openly and honestly without them judging you. That's one of the key elements that we set up and especially when we do our coaching or we do our training. We do some relationship training courses as well. And that's the thing. You've got to let your partner or your friend or whoever it might be vent what their issues are and just be there to listen. Sometimes that's all you need to do. You don't need to answer them. You don't need to give them a solution. Just listen. People want to be seen, heard, and loved. And if you do those three things, you'd be amazed at how quickly things can resolve themselves.
So something more to, being that support. And I think, like I said, being more on the feminine side of not trying to fix things all the time, but more just validating the feeling and being, alongside somebody versus trying to manage them or make them fix the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to this, but a couple other highlights is you've got to have good scheduling, your calendar, and you've got to stick to it. For example, my calendar today, now my life's a little different because, like I say, I'm technically retirement age. I don't have to work, but I love working, so I do. Yet I have a full calendar every day, and from 5 a.m. to 7:30 a.m., that's my personal time. And what do I do in my personal time? First thing I do in the morning is I make lemon water. That's one thing. I try to stay healthy, eat organic, and do all the good things. So I do my lemon water, squeeze a half a lemon into a hot water like a tea. I grind some ginger root in there. I put some turmeric and some cinnamon. And we have a back sun porch and a nice backyard. And I love to watch the birds. So we have bird feeders and bird nests and all that. And so I go out there early in the morning. It's usually still pre-dawn. So I'll do a meditation first. And that meditation can last from 5-10 minutes to 30 minutes sometimes. And then after that, the birds are out and they're getting their breakfast. Then I typically go for my morning walk because I live in Charleston, South Carolina. Especially this time of year, it is hot. Yeah. So you got to
get out there early or else you're not going out.
Yes. So I go for a minimum 2-mile walk. Some days it's 4 miles. And I get back here and then I'll have a latte or whatever and maybe have my breakfast. And then I do some reading and a little bit of journaling. Then I start to look at what my day is, my calendar. And I've got certain things like I get on a website to connect on LinkedIn, for example. Spend 15 minutes in there catching up on that. And that's another thing. You want to restrict yourself. That was a very hard thing for me to do, develop that calendar and actually stick to it. Because in real estate, things pop up like out of the blue. And like, no, never mind. I got to take care of that today. Everything goes out the window. Well, my coach keeps telling me, no, move it to another part of the day and still do it. Or to the next day if you really must. Because if you get away from that, it's hard to go back to it. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people.
Well, it's important to, keep those promises to yourself. Like that builds that internal discipline and that sense of self-esteem. And I think when you're living a reactive life, and I imagine real estate has to be that on some level, right? Then you break promises to yourself all the time. And you're just like, you don't believe yourself when you make a commitment.
Yes. And one of the programs I studied, and now I teach it, I'm a certified trainer, was how to work smarter, not harder. And I've learned to do that. And I honestly thought I was just going to cut back, but it wasn't again like I needed the income, but I like to be successful. I like to win. And I started working half time in real estate. And I was curious to see how much it would drop off. And actually through the training I got and what I now am certified in, actually made more money in half the time.
Can you share some of the principles there? Like what resulted in that?
Yeah, one of the big trainings I went through, it's a personality training. And I don't mind sharing it out there. A lady created, it's called BANK. It's an acronym for personality types. You have your blueprint type that's very organized. Matter of fact, I have little cards here that tell you the values on them. They're organized, they're risk adverse, they plan things out and, organize and everything. That's not me, by the way. Then you've got A, which is action. And these are the people that want the excitement, the freedom, the fun, the flexibility. They love to win. They love to take risks. Rules are made to be broken if you can get away with it. That's me. And then N is for nurturing, which is these are your support people, they're caring people. You typically find them in nonprofits. They love to work with the community and do charity work and that sort of thing. And the K is for knowledge. These are your scientists, your engineers, your smart people that want to know everything. And I can hand those to somebody like yourself and ask you to look at those values and sort the cards in order of which one sounds most like you as a person down to least like you as a person. And that's going to help me to understand and know you better and save us all some time. And everybody does that for me. And once they do, I know their personality style, their tendencies, how they think, and what their value system is. And you can do it in less than 90 seconds. I go into appointments, like I go into a listing appointment now, and when we sit down to go through things, they tell you, walk through the house with them and try to notice pictures or trophies or places they've been and, diplomas and all that, and then relate to them, okay? That's what they'll tell you through, like, DISC training and things like that. With this, I don't have to worry about that. I just sit down and ask them to do that fun little exercise for me, the card trick, as people call it. And now I know how they think, and I can adjust my presentation mode to suit their personality. And when you do that, you're talking their language, not mine. And when you talk somebody's language and you communicate the way they like to communicate, they automatically like you and they want to work with you. And how did this work in my business? Before I knew this, I was already a top agent. I was a realtor distinction, which is a top 10% in the industry. And I was closing at 37% of the time on my appointments. The industry average is around 20, 22, 23, fluctuates. So I knew I was a great agent. After I used this, in less than a year, that jumped to 86%. So you can see why working less time, you can actually make more money. And again, we teach courses in this and whatnot. And it's just such a great tool that's why I became certified to train it. And it's amazing the difference make. I go into an appointment now, there's no nerves. I'm not worried about who I'm meeting, because you're going into a stranger's home and you don't know what they're going to say or think. And you try to ask the right questions. Well, I know exactly what to say to them now.
Yeah, and you know what the questions they're going to ask, right, and what's important to them.
Yeah, for example, the knowledge person, they want all the data you can give them. I bury them in data. And the more you give them, the more they love you. The opposite of that is my style, the action style. You start giving me a 2-hour presentation, you've lost me. After 10 minutes, how long is this going to take? I got things to do.
Just get this thing done already,
Yeah, just cut to the bottom line. How much is my house worth? What can you sell it for so I know how much money I make? That's all. And those appointments, you just change that. You don't give them all the data. You say, I have it here if you want it, but you're probably not interested in this. Nope, I trust you, So, communication is the key. And it builds relationships.
Well, so let me ask you this, right? You do a bunch of coaching, you run these programs. What do you find that men are struggling with today? Like, do you see any trends or themes or patterns?
Yeah, it's showing that feminine side. Actually being comfortable showing that feminine side. I mean, you can get them one-on-one on a coaching call, and they'll tell you their deepest, darkest secrets and problems and, things that are going wrong or whatever. Yet you add one more person to that room and you won't get that out of there. And yet we make it a safe space. What happens here stays here. That they have to sign agreements ahead of time that, basically non-disclosure. You won't talk about what we talk about in the group, outside the group. And but the majority of our work is done either in small groups or one-on-one, which I think is most effective, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do too. It's like we do one-on-one and then our groups max out at 6. Because I find similar, like if you go more than that, the guys start to really shut down. Or this like weird competition, like the alpha dog thing kind of comes into play more.
It sneaks in there, yes. That's another thing, the competitive part of the man. That goes probably back to the Stone Ages, a lot of people would say.
Yeah, it goes back to the hierarchy, which I think is important, right? It's very masculine, but in those places, it's you got to be able to feel like you're on at least somewhat of an even playing field.
Right, but in today's world, where pretty much everything's at your fingertips, not such a struggle most of the time.
Yeah, I see that a lot with my generation, younger generation, where it's like we actually need some more of that old school boomer mentality in some ways, right? Like I think we can be complacent. I think we can be, like nice guys, like all people pleasing and conflict avoidant. So our work tends to be to tap into the masculine, whereas I think the old generation's like, you guys need the feminine.
Exactly. And I'm glad you said that because I find it interesting that people in their 20s, will open up to me quite freely.
Yep, they're a lot better at that.
And I think there's some automatic trust built in. It's like they're talking to their granddad or something, and a lot of that, especially the younger girls, they tend to have that deep relationship with the grandfather. And it's amazing. They'll tell me anything. And then afterwards, they'll say, my God, I can't believe I told you all that. How did that happen? How do you understand me? I said, well, I was 25 once too, I just got there sooner than you did. That's all it is. I still remember what I did when I was 25. I don't want you doing that, though. So it's fascinating that way. And I love working with the younger people. They're eager to learn typically, and they're very open, and they get a lot of aha moments. There's so many things I would say that to me, I just assume everybody knows. I used to anyway. Now I know better. And yet they're like, oh my God, I never realized that, or never thought of that way. Like, really? Because I'll say that to them and say, well, isn't that refreshing, and give you something else to think about.
That's wonderful. I think young people need that. We're so hungry for mentors, and people that I think will guide us. I think my generation, particularly millennials, we didn't have a lot of that at all. A lot of our parents either were divorced or were working way too much, and we didn't have that guidance, that emotional guidance. We had a lot of, financial and physiological safety. We weren't going to get robbed, and we had enough money. But we didn't have that grandfather or grandmother to really walk us through life.
That's true. There's a lot of broken homes and things like that, step parents and whatnot. Yeah, I got one situation. My family was like 3 or 4 sets of grandparents. It's like, good Lord. It's not the way it used to be anyway, at least in my family. I'm sure there was situations like that, but we didn't have the internet back then and the media exposure that you have now and social media. And you just didn't know about those things. They weren't talked about.
There's something nostalgic about like a smaller scale of life. You don't have to worry about all the world problems all the time.
I grew up in a small town. It was nice then. Of course, growing up, you couldn't wait to get out of there. There was nothing to do, so to speak. And now I hear it's the chic place to live in Massachusetts. And I tell
hipsters moved in and they took it over.
Yeah, and I say that sounds like the biggest oxymoron I ever heard in my life, because growing up there, we didn't have anything to do. We did have stuff to do, but it was, country stuff. It wasn't, you didn't have, discos or whatever was going on the day, and you had to leave town to find that stuff. So, and in my town, a lot of people knew each other. They knew who your parents were, so you couldn't get in trouble.
Information would travel down the grapevine, right? I'm sure
yes.
Recognize each other's cars and trucks and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, exactly. I couldn't walk down the street and smoke a cigarette because somebody
would tell somebody.
My mom and dad, and they say, hey, did you know your son's smoking?
Well, so I want to ask you about the future, right? So you said, you're kind of semi-retired. You're building this coaching business, right? Like, what's the future hold for you? Like, where do you want to see this thing go?
Oh, definitely continue coaching. It's my why, my purpose in life. And I've been told this, and I feel it deep inside when I meditate, especially, and I connect with Source, that I've got a message to get out there. And that's why I'm looking for more speaking engagements, because when I do speak, it's having a profound effect on people. I'll tell you one quick story. At a different event I was at in Vegas, I was up on stage talking and basically revealing my soul. And it was my first time doing that. And it was very, very tough, very emotional, but I got through it. And I thought after that, I said, God, I can't wait to get out of this room, just get in the men's room, collect myself, and just go back to the business side of it type of thing. Before I could get off that stage, because we were breaking for lunch, I had a line of men waiting to hug me and thank me for what I said. And their wives or just women that were there. And that's when that whole thing started. And they says, you got to get this message out there. Thank you for saying that and sharing. I wish my husband would say that or act that way, And I just wanted to get out of that room, and I was very emotional. I'm in the men's room, I'm washing up, get ready to leave, and this gentleman came in who I knew who he was. Quite wealthy man, actually, multi-millionaire. But I didn't know him personally, I hadn't been introduced. So he came in and he just looked at me. You could tell he'd been crying. And he says, I just want to thank you for what you did for me. I said, what'd I do? He said, when you shared that, I realized I have not talked to my dad in 10 years. And I went outside and I called him and told him I love him. I mean, it still brings tears to my eyes. That's when I knew, okay, this is why I'm doing it. And that to me is the greatest feeling in the world. And it's interesting you say semi-retired. Retired has a connotation with it where you just stop working and do nothing. When I retired, when I reached retirement age, I added a third business because I have my appraisal business that I own and my real estate business that I'm still doing. And then I started my coaching business. So, and that's been going strong now for 7-8 years.
Talk more about that retirement piece or retirement age, right? Because, you know, I think it's still kind of a tongue-in-cheek stat, but there's some truth to it that retirement's number one killer of men. You know, like a lot of us really spin out when we lose the job or we're not able to be as strong or as, you know, athletic or whatever, right? When aging starts to kick in.
I'm going to argue that athleticism bit of it because I embarrass people. Matter of fact, the real estate company I work at, they just did a social event at an indoor pickleball center. And I play tennis once a week with the guys, and I vowed I'd never play pickleball because it could ruin my tennis game. But because it was a social and they had free beer and all that, so I decided to go and just see how things would go out. Ended up playing with this one guy, and we did a round-robin thing where the losers move and the winner stays. Well, him and I won all 8 matches in the couple hours we were there. And people coming up to me and say, how long have you been playing pickleball? I said, this is my first time. They're like, no way. They wouldn't believe it. They thought I was part owner in this place, right? And I'm 71 years old, and I was kicking ass. Some of these 30 and 40-year-olds. And so when you say, you know, you lose that athleticism, I have a mental mindset where I would never stop doing that. I will sprint down the street just to know that I still have that energy and that coordination and that ability in me. And I go for long walks. Some days I'll jog. I go for bike rides. Anything athletic. I love to hike. Have the opportunity to go up to Banff last summer, actually Canmore in Canada, and hiked the Rocky Mountains and loved it. I was the first one up to the top of the mountain, 8,000 feet. And I nothing against you, but I've been to Colorado as well. And those Canadian Rockies, boy, they put Colorado to shit.
They're a lot more epic. My honeymoon was actually in Canmore, so I'm familiar with the area.
Oh, okay, great, yeah. And Matt, okay, so one of the days it was a physical retreat type of thing, and one of the days we rode bicycles from Canmore to Banff and back again, and that's 15-mile trip one way. And another day we went paddleboarding on a glacial lake, and the other day we did the mountain hiking, and loved every minute of it. And I got up the top of that mountain and I sat there and I was in tears, and they're like, what's wrong? I said, I'm just so thankful that I've taken care of myself all these years so I could be sitting here right now. Because in my 50s, there were people my age from my class that were getting old and decrepit. And I'm like, why? What's wrong? I said, nothing. It's just I'm old. I'm getting old. They think you're supposed to get decrepit. And there was a commercial on TV a few years ago, and I forget what it's for, some drug, I think, but it says, a body in motion stays in motion. That's a good philosophy to have.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Very true. I have to get outside every day. I can't sit and do nothing or sit at a desk. I can't sit at this desk all day.
Yeah, it starts to atrophy.
We bought chairs that have a massage and a heater in them, and they were on sale, and I thought, I need something.
Well, so yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the purpose and meaning in retirement, right? Because I do think men can lose that, right? So how did you keep that going strong? And how would you advise other men that are nearing retirement to try to navigate this next phase?
For men that are near retirement, for me, it's easy because my work isn't physically taxing. So that's a big help, obviously. And it keeps me interacted socially. I would say for men, find something that you love to do. What if you always wanted to do and life didn't work out the way you wanted and you had to take this other job? What's your passion? Is it photography? Is it traveling the world and doing a blog? Well, that would be my goal if I was going to do something else. But see, this work allows me to work anywhere I want, so I can travel. And we spent 2 months in Europe this winter just because we could. And that was my goal, and I think this is a good goal for men to set and have a mantra. I do what I want to do when I want to do it. I don't, because I had a health scare a few years ago, and we found out it was all related to stress, because real estate's a stressful job. And that's where I came up with that mantra, is I was catering to everybody else and ignoring my health. And when I realized that, no, they're going to work on my schedule, I thought it was going to hurt me, and it didn't. It actually made work easier. And I have virtually no stress now. So these are some of the things that I'm turning around and helping others with so that they can benefit from it. And that makes me happy.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is like being in touch with, actually, again, that's not that authenticity piece that you're bringing up, being in touch with what your actual interests are, and disconnecting from the matrix, right? Like stopping playing the game to some extent. Because hopefully at that point, you've already won. You have your security, you have your stability, you got stuff figured out.
And you talk about the matrix, and that's one of the things. The matrix is that material side of the world to me, and it's your ego that makes you get through that as well as you do. Yet when you, and things happen to you, but yet when you can go inside and you can connect with your source, whatever you want to call that, and become you at your true essence, now things happen for you. And when it's a mind shift more than anything. Yet when your mind shifts, you'll be amazed the effect it has on people around you. And the next thing you know, things will start coming to you that you had no clue were going to come. Good things that you always hoped for, but didn't know that they could. And, I know that sounds like a dream. And people say, yeah, right, easy for you to say. Well, no, it wasn't easy for me. I'm the same as everybody else. And it's funny, I always heard that. It's, I'm the same as you. Yeah, but you got millions of dollars. Well, I don't have millions of dollars, but, I don't have to worry because I'm doing what I love. And it's just, things just kind of fall into place when that happens.
It's true. It happens, right? I mean, breaking that victim mindset is huge. What I tell my guys is like the difference between a boy and a man is that a man takes responsibility for everything in his life, right? Even things that were outside of his control, right? Like you take responsibility how you're going to deal and heal and recover from that. But I do think like that victim mentality is the most poisonous thing that we carry around. And if you can break that, then like I said, it's a totally different world. It's a whole paradigm shift.
And it goes back to, I can't remember the book, but it goes back to the difference between love and fear. That's all there is in the world, is love or fear. So which side do you want to be on? Obviously, love's the happier one. And it's just, another thought too is when you get up, think of this. You have a new day ahead of you, and there is nothing the universe can't give you, but you have to believe it can come to you. It's that affirmation. If somebody wants a good source for that, especially for the men, I fell in love with this gentleman when I heard about him, Wayne Dyer. Read his books. That man, he helped change my life too. I met my wife, she's an avid reader, and she gave me a lot of his books when we first met. And my daily mantra is a quote from him. It's, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's powerful. That's profound. And it's a great place to end the episode. I think that's something that we can leave our listeners with. So Joe, if people want to learn more about you, follow you online, where can they look you up?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. As most people are. I'm also on Facebook as well. If you want to get in touch with me directly, my email is candjcoaching@gmail.com. And I don't mind giving my cell phone number either. It's 843-345-8506. And I'm always available. Text or call me. And, of course, tell me where you heard about me or where we met. And happy to get on a discovery call and have a chat, see if we get along. Because you can't get along with everybody, but help the ones that you can.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. Listeners, check out Joe's stuff. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes if you want to learn more about him, look at the training programs, look at the coaching. Call him, email him. I mean, it seems like he's extremely available and ready and willing to work with you and get a chance to meet you and know you. So I think it's a great resource to have in your back pocket. So thanks again for tuning in. If you like this episode, do all the stuff. Like, share, subscribe. You know how to do it by now. Check out menstherapy.online. That's the hub for all of our stuff. So we got, of course, the therapy work, individual, group, and retreats, as well as tons of podcasts, blogs, free email courses. We got everything that you want. So if you want it, we have it there. Check us out, menstherapy.online. And Joe, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. And like I say, it's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week, another episode of the Men's Therapy Podcast.